one because our moderator comes best prepared. You know, he comes prepared with many questions, and hopefully we'll have a lively event. So again, not saying any more, I'm going to introduce Brian Lacina, our moderator, who does great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome to the annual town debate. This time around, we actually have just the Board of Selectmen and the school committee for our debate. The planning board was uncontested, and we invited folks to come, and they weren't available. So we've got a little bit of extended time so we can ask a lot more questions. If I could have the school committee candidates come forward and find your spot. Okay. Welcome. And I'll start by giving you a couple of little setups. First of all, why don't we all make our phones silenced if we could. I heard one ring already, and that can be kind of disruptive, so I'll do mine too. Thank you. Questions from the audience. We have some cards that are passed out. If you have questions you'd like to write down, if something comes to mind or you want to put it up, write it down and hold the card up. And Curtis, you offered to come and pick those up. Okay. I've got a lot of questions that we've already put in. However, I think audience questions are very special and important to us. As well, we have a couple members of the press here. Tom Cristiano, Facebook page, Chelmsford News, welcome. And I have Chelmsford Independent's writer, Mark Schulert, welcome. So if you have questions, you can put them on a card, or we can ask them at a little bit future here. I'd like to introduce Donna Newcomb for running for school committee, and Jamie Outland Brown. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to ask you each, and Jamie, why don't you start? Give us a little thumbnail sketch, a minute or minute and a half or so, bio, who you are, why you're running for school committee.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Jamie Outland Brown. I want to thank the Republican Town Committee for allowing me to be here this evening. I am a retired military police master sergeant from the United States Army. I currently am a stay-at-home mom of 3 young children, ages 2, 4, and 8. And I support my husband, who still serves active duty in the military, and will have 22 years of service in come this July. So, long life and long history in our family of dedication to serving this country and our community. I have an MBA with a specialization in accounting, and I'm driven to be proactive parent and proactive positive contributor to my community. I look forward to tonight's debate and questions, and I hope everyone enjoys this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And Donna Newcomb.
Good evening. My name is Donna Newcomb, and I would also like to thank the Republican Town Committee for sponsoring tonight's debate. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a resident of Chelmsford since 1998, and I currently reside on Janet Road with my children, Jack and Emma, both who are in college right now. After graduating from Westfield State University, I worked as a special education teacher for 18 years at the Lighthouse School. During my time there, I received my master's in science in rehabilitation counseling and from Boston University. I joined Lowell High School in 2006 as a special education teacher. In addition to my teaching responsibilities, I also oversee the Compass program, which is an after-school enrichment program for 9th graders, and I volunteer in the Outdoor Adventure Club, which gives inner-city kids the opportunity to be able to experience the out-of-doors. As a resident of Chelmsford, I've had the pleasure of volunteering my time to serve in our town. I am currently on the Board of Trustees at the library, and I'm a town meeting representative. I also have served on the Community Preservation Committee. When my kids were in school, I was actively involved in the South Row PTO, as well as the South Row School Council. I was involved with the Chelmsford PTO and the Council of Schools when my kids were in high school. I'm the co-founder of the Initiative for Local Aid, a grassroots advocacy group that worked to increase local aid to municipalities. And I believe that my experience as an educator and being the parent of 2 graduates of the Chelmsford Public Schools and my extensive volunteer work will allow me to serve as a member of the school committee.
Thank you very much. And I do have a timekeeper. If we run a little bit long, our timekeeper will hold up a 15-second warning.
I got the red one already.
Yeah.
I got the red card.
And then he will hold up a red marker when you're out of time, and I'll interrupt you.
It was
at some
upside
point.
down. Yeah, sorry.
And then there's also a bell when it gets really bad. Okay, terrific, terrific. This
I
is
feel like I'm
different.
back in elementary school again.
That's right. It's different. It's different than school committee. You can pretty much run as long as you want. Okay, so I'd like to give each one of you a chance to answer some questions we've already come up with. I'd like to give you a minute apiece, and I may ask you for a follow-on. And if you do mention your opponent, I may or may not give them an opportunity to respond as well. Okay? Let's start with Jamie. Call her Jamie.
Okay.
What is your vision of the Chelmsford Public Schools at this point?
My vision, how could you elaborate? I'm sorry.
General vision.
Like, where do I see it going? What I think our mission is, or what my perception of what it is
Yes.
right now?
Yes.
Okay. My vision or perception of what Chelmsford school system is, I think it does offer an excellent educational opportunity for children. It is one of the reasons why we chose to come and move here to Chelmsford. And I do believe there are a lot of areas that we can also improve. But Chelmsford has a good, solid educational system here, and we need to keep moving that forward.
Okay, thank you. Donna, what is your vision of the Chelmsford Public Schools?
I think we have a terrific school system. I think we offer many opportunities to our students, and I think my own children are examples of how well prepared students are when they leave high school. They're both in college and doing well. I think there are many activities and opportunities that we offer our students to enrich their overall education, not just what happens in the classroom, but also what happens in clubs and activities, band, theater, sports. I mean, it's really incredible when you see how accomplished our students are. We have a terrific group of teachers, really just outstanding people who come in every single day and really try to do the best for our kids. I think we've done a great job in terms of identifying some of the things that we need to work on. For example, we completed the comprehensive facilities assessment. We've been able to implement full-day kindergarten. We've increased our space by adding the modulars. And that doesn't mean that our work is done. I mean, I think we still have plenty to do. But this is a very solid, very well-organized, very well-run school system, and I think we should all be very proud.
Thank you. Second question, and I'm going to jump back to you, Donna, if you don't mind. And you mentioned different activities. So the question is, what are your thoughts about the various activity fees imposed on parents and students, such as bus, parking, athletic, and activity itself? Activity fees.
Oh, I don't like them at all, and I paid all of them. I would really like to revisit some of these. I think that there are some that, I think that, first of all, you have to take a look at the budget. And when you see the cost of transportation, okay, and then the amount of fees that we collect that offset that total cost, I think, you'd be surprised at how expensive transportation is. I mean, let's take a look at the transportation contract right now that we have. One of the reasons why it was so expensive is because there's no other bus companies in this area to compete with the bus company that we're using right now. So they get to really kind of name their price. So I think that, these fees are unfortunately here to stay. I think, again, with athletic fees, I think it's important to take a look at what the overall amount of money is that's collected and offset that against the total cost. And again, I would say, look at the budget. I think you're going to be surprised at how much the athletic program costs to run. With regards to activity fees, that is one area I would really like to take a look at. I think that we need to take a good, hard look at how much we're collecting. So the activity fees are about $125 a year for clubs and activities. One of my problems was the activity fee so I'll use my daughter as an example. She was doing things in the service of the school and paying $125 to do that. Okay, so I think that those are the kinds of things that we need to take a look at. How much are we really bringing in? What clubs is it appropriate to charge for? And if it isn't, not charge the parents.
Thank you. And Jamie, what are your thoughts on the various fees imposed on parents and students, such as bus fees, parking fees, athletic fees, and activity fees?
Again, no, I don't think we should have those fees, but I do believe it is a necessary evil in this day and age. From a business perspective, transportation costs money. So we can't expect the company to run buses, fleet, have drivers, and do all that they do without having something to pay for that. Now, on saying that, I think there are ways that we can look into to reduce the amount of fees or offset costs for athletic activities or after-school activities. We want to encourage students to be active and to participate in all these activities and be active within the organizations within their community, but then we're going to make the parents pay for it. And I don't know about you, but it's pretty expensive to live here in Chelmsford to begin with. And I'm a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. I don't have a lot of extra capital to be spending, and I want to give all that I can to my children. So I think we need to really take a hard look at what's the cost, where are we putting it, and is there a realistic way that we can reduce or eliminate some of these fees?
Great, thank you. And Donna, on the fee question, I'd like to kind of expand on that a little bit. Town meeting's going to be asked to resurface the parking lot at the high school. And we've, for several years, including when my kids were there, paid parking fees, quite a lot of money. I think it was $400
It's 200. It's the same as the bus pass now.
200 plus a bus pass, so.
No, it is the same as the bus pass.
Would it be more appropriate for us to withdraw those fees that were paid for parking to replace the parking lot? Kind of a yes/no question, but it's, if you would expand.
Maybe. And no, the only reason I say that is because, again, I mean, you can't look at these things in isolation. I think you have to look at the total cost of transportation, how much we take in. I mean, transportation is expensive. I'm not sure, even with all of the fees that are collected, that we could pay for transportation and pay for resurfacing the parking lot.
Okay, let me refocus.
All right.
The fee for parking,
Yes.
arguably, is to park on the parking lot.
Yes.
That the town already bought, and now we need to resurface it. Would it be appropriate for that fee to apply to that parking facility, or not the bus fees, but the parking itself?
No, I understand, and I guess I was lumping bus fees and parking fees together, okay? Because, I call it a transportation fee. Basically, you're either paying for a space in the parking lot or you're paying to be transported to school. As far as whether or not it's appropriate to use it, yeah, I think we should definitely take a look at that, absolutely. I think if it's feasible and affordable, then yes, we should definitely take a look at using parking fees as a means of being able to fund the resurfacing of the parking lot. But I also think it's important to remember, too, that parking lot hasn't been resurfaced since I think the building was first built. And it was put off, I think, 17 out of 18 times, okay, on the capital budget. And it's long overdue, okay, to be resurfaced. So whether it comes out of the parking fees or not, I think it's time for it to be done. It's no longer safe.
Okay, thank you. And Jamie, same question. Parking fee offset the cost of parking in the parking lot?
Well, and I can be a straight thinker here. I mean, if you're paying to use a facility, what you're paying should help maintain said source or resource or facility. So I think it makes sense that your parking fee would actually improve what you're paying to use. So I think that's where the fees need to go.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, and I'll ask Jamie if you wouldn't mind. Do you feel the school buildings are adequate to meet our current needs?
I know our school buildings are better than in other areas and locations. Obviously, I know that the Chelmsford community has put in a lot of money over the last several years, upgrading windows, HVAC, heating, security, intercoms. So I know we've made a lot of improvements. Do we need to make more, or do we need to, definitely need new buildings? Absolutely. I mean, overall, our buildings are very old. They still have a lot of limitations or other items within the building that are not safe, like there's still asbestos tiles, functioning locks, those type of things, water fountains that are not safe to actually drink out of. These are things that obviously we need to look at. So we've made improvements. But obviously, I mean, who's not going to turn around and argue that we definitely could use new buildings?
Perfect. And Donna, do you feel our school buildings are adequate to meet our needs?
I think that there are some areas that I would like to see improvement in. I think things are changing, okay, so quickly in education. The technology is absolutely, astounding now what it is that we're using in the classrooms. Just a couple of years ago, we were talking about smart boards. Believe it or not, we've actually gotten away from smart boards, and we're using something called like a Prometheus TV or Apple TV. So, things are rapidly, and I think our infrastructure in the buildings, really needs to be able to accommodate rapidly changing technology. I'm glad that we have the comprehensive facilities assessment. I think that we need to develop a vision that goes along with that for maintaining our buildings, as well as a long-range plan for a new facility and how it is that we're going to go forward in terms of getting that approved through the state, what the funding will look like, and also how is it that we can offset some of the cost here in town by taking a look at the current facilities we have. Maybe we combine some elementary schools and centralize some schools in order to be able to take other schools offline. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can approach this, and I think that it's something that we have to be really vigilant at exploring and talking about.
Thank you. I'd like to survey the crowd in the room here. How many of you have a subscription to the Chelmsford Independent and the Lowell Sun? And how many access the Chelmsford Facebook page, Chelmsford News? Okay, thank you. Recently in the news, we had an article that I read about the school committee member, and this question, Donna, if you would start on this one. If you become a school committee member and you have concern about the actions of one of the other members, how would you address it?
That's a great question. And this is one that I've actually given a lot of thought to. I'm hoping that, going forward, that we're going to be able to set a standard of a decorum and civility in our meetings that people will adhere to. I think we need to come back together to develop a common vision and focus for what we should really be doing. I think once we begin with that, that's a proactive step, and people sign on and make that our focus, then I think that we have to be constantly communicating with each other and holding each other accountable in a respectful way if we drift off track and we don't fulfill the responsibilities that the people in the town have elected us to fulfill.
Thank you. And Jamie, same question. If you were become a school committee member and you have concerns about the actions of one of the other members, how would you address it?
First and foremost, that I address it directly with the individual in question. If I have a problem or a concern or question about a particular action or behavior, I'm going to bring it to that person. Why? Why did we do it this way? What was your response? What was your thinking? What was your thought process? Sometimes kind of understanding that perspective might help enlighten, and then we can further educate why that action was taken. If that action was completely inappropriate, regardless of the purpose, reason, or event, address it with the individual. Hopefully that individual acknowledges that the actions were inappropriate and makes proper changes. If that person does not, then we escalate it to the leadership level. We have a vice chair and a chairman at the school committee. Let's bring in the leadership. Let's sit down and talk about this. I have a concern about this behavior. Bring it to the chairman's attention, and let's try and deal with it in-house effectively, but professionally.
Thank you. And Donna, if I could kind of expand on this, I had a question that had come in on Facebook. So I'd like a little more clarity.
Sure.
As an elected official, do you believe Facebook is an appropriate medium for town residents to post questions to the school committee? And if not, why not? If yes, do you feel that the school committee members should be tasked with the responsibility of answering those questions? So it's kind of a similar question in the sense that it talks about communicating with our stakeholders.
I personally would like to see the school committee stay away from social media. I think that it's just opens Pandora's box. Now, here's one of the problems. Okay, so someone posts a question. Okay, maybe one person can respond, maybe two from the school committee. But as soon as the third person enters that discussion, now we are in violation of the open meeting laws. So it really sets up an odd dynamic on the school committee as to who's going to answer the question and how is it going to be answered, and will it best reflect the practice and the policies of the school committee as a whole. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for parents to be able to share their questions. I think we can take a look at expanding those opportunities through our meeting agendas and reintroducing the public forums. But I think that the best place to be able to get questions answered and to sort out some of the issues that are on people's minds is to not do that through the social media such as Facebook.
Thank you. And Jamie, do I need to repeat it?
No, I'm got it. Thank you. I think ignoring social media in this day and age would be irresponsible of the school committee. I mean, realistically, a lot of communication transpires on social media. We need to be aware of it. Now, yes, there are open meeting laws that we need to ensure are being followed. But if a person on Facebook says, hey, do we know if they're going to vote on the snow day makeup on school committee meeting, what day, having a school committee representative say, here's our schedule, here's our calendar, here's a copy of our agenda, I don't think that's inappropriate. I think that's feeding the information they're asking for. Now, if they want to debate an issue, then there we need to draw the line. That's where we need to advise where the proper forum is, the school committee, or asking questions to the superintendent if they haven't already escalated it through, if they have already escalated through the administration of the school building. But I don't think we can ignore social media. It is the day and age. So we need to have clear guidelines, make sure we're not violating open meeting law, and we're being professional about it. And whatever is said is fact. So if I were to make a comment on there as a school committee representative, it is fact. It's not my personal opinion, or I'm not portraying my opinion as school committee stance. So again, fine line, procedures needed, policy needs to be clearly articulated, but ignoring social media, I think, would be a neglect on our part.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Jamie, I'd like to ask, there's a question that came in from the audience that kind of follows that same thought. Respect appears to be absent at the school committee meetings sometimes. How would you bring it back as a school committee member?
So, Army, we do a lot of team building. It is evident with the school committee now that there are some personal turbulence, which seems to be affecting the professionalism of the members. So we need to look at how can we get over that personal turbulence. And I have some ideas. First and foremost, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's put it out on the table and say our piece. What do you think of this person? What is your grievance with this person? Let's put it out there. Let's say it to each other's face. If that's not effective, let's get a mediator, right? Bring a mediator in, facilitate constructive communication between each other, but let's get it out there. That doesn't work. Well, let's get inventive. I say we go down to the local gym, put on some big old boxing gloves, and let's just do a little exercise. Let's just work out the frustration. There are levels, we can make it fun, productive, but they need to get over whatever this riff is that's running underneath them, and we need to get back to our focus, and that focus is the children and the education in this district.
Thank you. Donna?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I will.
I still have the boxing gloves in my head for some reason.
Respect appears to be absent at some of the school committee meetings. How would you bring it back by being on the school committee?
So I think this is really a multi-layered issue, and I'd like to go back to the social media question for a second, in that, some of the conflict that we're seeing on the school committee right now is born out of comments on social media. So I'm not saying by any means that social media should not be used to inform. What I am saying is that it shouldn't be used to sort out problems, that I think that there are more appropriate venues to have discussions that would allow all of the school committee members to participate. Because what ends up happening is you end up with a really strange dynamic where some people don't respond and some people do, and then the impression is the rest of the people don't care, and that may not be the case. So I think that one of the things, again, we have to do is we have to go back to what are we doing this for? We are doing this for the kids, and everybody has to recommit to that we are going to make the best school system possible. And I have a lot of faith in the school committee members right now. I think that, that they can recommit to doing this. This is why they all got into it to begin with. I mean, they put in a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of effort on behalf of the families here in Chelmsford, or actually the taxpayers, for everybody. And I think that it's time that we, step back, we take a look at the positives, we figure out what we're going to do about some of these problems, and we have an honest discussion about what our vision is going forward and make sure that we really stick to it.
Thank you. And let's see. Jamie, you already had a chance on that one.
Yes, sir.
This one throws me a little. I'm trying to read into it a little bit. In light of the recent school shootings, are there security measures that we should be doing in our school system that we're not doing now? And I hesitate a little bit because I don't want to totally divulge our security issues. But Jamie, can you discuss security in our schools given this environment?
Obviously, a lot of security protocol we don't want to publicly make public because then so there's a lot of things that we obviously are not going to be able to discuss openly here. I will say from what you see, access control into the buildings, I think there can be some improvement there to improve the security. I think when you enter into a building, you should be greeted within 3 to 5 feet. Physically, eye contact, someone in the building, they either identify who you are or you are physically checked in and confirmed why you're in the school. I think that is the first step, and I think the way the building is laid out, the way the buildings are laid out, are just not conducive to having that kind of access control, which is necessary in this day and age. I mean, we didn't need it 50 years ago, but we definitely need it today. So speaking of that from just something of a visual perspective that you can actually see, I believe that might be one area that would be a good improvement.
Okay, thank you. Donna?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, we need to be evaluating our safety protocols and measures that we have in all of the schools. I will say this is that they've really gone above and beyond in terms of trying to take a look at, with the help of the police department, things that we can do, things that we can put in place to be able to minimize anybody that may be coming into the school that may want to do something dangerous or unsafe. And, I think that we have to think about it in terms of school safety, not just necessarily an active shooter, because, to be honest with you, it really could be anything. As far as the perimeter is concerned, the doors do lock. I think what happens sometimes is that people prop them open, and we really have to create a culture where people take this very, very seriously. That kids don't let someone that they don't know into the building because they think it's a student that's running late and they don't want them to get in trouble by making them go through the front office. So I think that these are some of the things that we really have to take a hard look at, not only just the specific structural things, but our own behavior as well. And then I think that it's very important that we reach out to the teachers. Now, I'm a teacher in a classroom, and I can tell you right now, my classroom is set up for shelter in place, okay? And it's very humbling, okay? I don't know how else to say it, to lay in bed at night and to think about how will I evacuate my kids. I think we really need to make sure that the teachers have everything that they need in order to be able to either shelter in place or to safely evacuate.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, recently we've had a lot of snow days, and that certainly puts a challenge both on our contract obligations for our teachers and also on the students themselves. Do you have a solution to our snow day problem this year and future?
Well, I will say, so next year we're starting earlier, which should help us to help alleviate, give us a few more days to flex without going into adjusting vacation days. So I think they're already looking to incorporate that change to hopefully help, because this year has obviously been a fluke of obscure snow weather. I would say if it became necessary and we need to look further, merging your February and April and maybe having one in March as a suggestion, that would be a recommendation. I think the viable option, I think we could actually look at and see if that's feasible. Obviously, I mean, there's other parties involved, and I'm not making this decision on myself, by myself. It would be, but that's a recommendation I would definitely inquire and like to investigate.
Okay, and Donna, snow days and solution.
Well, I agree. I think that starting before Labor Day is going to give us a little bit more of a cushion. I think some of the other things that we should explore are e-learning opportunities, so extended learning opportunities. And these would be things that kids might be able to do on home. Now, this is going to take a little bit of work with the teachers, because I think we would need to define what those e-learning opportunities would look like. Are they going to be enrichment? Are they going to be skill and acquisition? Or are they just going to be review and reinforce? So I think that, certainly working with the teachers to talk about what type of extended learning opportunities may be available. But I also think it's important to look at extended learning opportunities for other reasons as well. Because sometimes we have kids out on medical leave, for example, or who may be out for extended periods of time, maybe a long-term suspension. And so I think that this is an opportunity to revisit all of these things by looking at some of these e-learning opportunities for kids. And then obviously there would need to be some protocols in place to determine how it will affect the grade, what the weight will be. If, for example, we have a snowstorm like we did a couple weeks ago and people's power are out, will there be an extension? Is it optional? Is it not optional? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that would need to be sorted out. I'm not opposed to vacation consolidation, but I think that we need to take a look at everything else that's happening in the schools at the time. So I know MCAS retests are given quite a bit through March. And the last thing that I found fascinating was, as I was reading about the problems with the snow days, is that we do 990 minutes and 180 days. And maybe it's time to look at maybe just doing 990 minutes and eliminating the 180-day requirement.
Thank you. And Don, I heard something there, e-learning. Some people may not know what that is.
It's like an online learning. So it could be like an online class, and there's different variations of it. So it could be a whole class, or it could be just assignments or parts of a class. I think that there's just so many things out there, and many of them are free.
So what you're describing maybe is a different approach to our current teaching. And with that, this question, and I'd like to start with you. Do you support the application for a new high school, given there are other ways to learn and we have different tools to learn with? Will the town support an extra bond issue of 100 to 200 million? Is that the number? So the combination of the question is, we're talking about a new high school with 100 million or more dollars, yet you just described the possibility of others type of learning, maybe not with the brick and mortar.
I think that education is really changing, and that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for different types of learning. I think that the extended learning or the online classes and things like that is just one way to be able to teach kids, and maybe to increase the amount of classes that we can offer. But I don't think that you can take away from direct instruction. I think that it's really very important for kids to be able to have people that they can talk to and learn new things from. I mean, there's only so much you can do through an online class. And it really, I think about some of my most inspirational teachers, and it was, these discussions in class maybe related to something that we were learning that I was really able to take away something from. As far as the town supporting it, Probably not at this point. I don't think we have a good plan in place, and I wouldn't recommend supporting it at this point. I think we need to have a comprehensive plan. I think we need to be looking down the road. Okay, this isn't something that we should be springing on people right now by any means. And I think we need to be able to justify why it is that we're looking for some type of new construction. And I think that we need to reestablish our trust with the community and our credibility and all of the things that will help people to have faith that a new construction is a wise investment.
Okay. And Jamie, same question. Relative to there are different types of learning and technologies changing, and we're talking about supporting an application for a new high school. Do you support that? And will you support the town possibly creating another bond issue of $100 to $200 million to build a new high school?
Okay, so first part of your question, if we get a capital project, what would be the best possible capital project? And I think our best bang for our buck would be a new high school. Preparing our high school students to effectively be successful in college would be requiring us to have a high school up to date, technology-wise, facility-wise, so that what they're experiencing in high school can help prepare them for college. Or if they choose to go out into the real, in the working sector, prepare them for the technology that's being used today to work, right? So do I support the town in supporting a new bond for this project? Only when we have a plan, a clear, delineated plan, course of action, timeline, real hard, concrete information. And I say, yes, I would support the town because a good, reputable educational system increases property value, brings in positive people who are actively seeking out a good educational system for their children will come here because that's what we can have to offer. People will want to live here because they want their kids to have that excellent education. So if we want people to live here, increase our property value, and again, bring in more economic value and revenue sources into our town, because we are improving our educational system and making that even more attractive for people to come join us.
Thank you. And Jamie, opportunity to ask a question of your opponent. There's one seat for school committee. One of you will be on the school committee. Could you ask your opponent a question? Do you have something to ask?
Yes, just one question. So you stated in an interview that you believed it would be tricky to be on the school committee and have children in the school district. I was just wondering why. What was your thought behind that?
I think that, so I guess what I meant by that is that my kids have already gone through the schools. And so I'm not unduly influenced necessarily, nor do I have any influence over anybody that may be working with my kids. And this is where it gets a little complicated sometimes. I mean, I think that all in all, people do a great job of keeping things separate. But I think that sometimes, like I said, I mean, it's hard. How do you separate out sometimes being a school committee member and being a mom? You want to advocate for your kids, but sometimes that does not necessarily always go along with, what the school committee may recommend or, what it is that, may be policy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Donna, question for your opponent.
Okay. I was wondering what you think of standardized testing and the role that it plays in day-to-day instruction in the classroom.
Well, standardized testing is something that's dictated to us, right? It's something we have to do. I think we need to make sure that as teachers in our classroom, we're not teaching just what is on the test, and that we are doing what we can do. Obviously, we want our children to be successful when we take tests, but again, tests only cover a minuscule portion of what is actually learned and taught in the classroom. So ensuring that the teachers are still being expanding the knowledge of our children well beyond what's actually on the test. So we're not influencing just test results, but overall performance is what's important.
Thank you. And I do have two members of the press here, Tom Cristiano of the Chelmsford News Facebook, And
13,000 members.
13,000 members. Do you have any questions for our two candidates, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Latina, I don't tonight. I don't.
Nope.
Because I know we get good questions when we come here, so I'm
Terrific.
leaving it all up to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mark Schulert of the Chelmsford Independent, do you have any? We're covering the bases. Terrific. Okay. Do either one of you have another question for your opponent? Opportunity.
I don't. I think the audience and I think everyone is definitely, all the debates we've had and interviews have really given an opportunity, and we've had so many great questions. I think it's being well covered.
Okay. Donna?
I have one. What surprised you most in your campaign so far?
Surprised me most.
Yeah, what surprised you the most?
I don't know if it surprised me so much as just reminded me about the level of people's change in view, how different people can look at different things. And I know it's human nature to view it, but how they will jump on one thing on one side, but not necessarily enforce that same thing on the other side. So that to me was, I don't want to say a surprise because it's just human nature, but I always kind of give this sense of people will be trust and fair across the board. I try and think that first before they show me differently. So, but other than that, I mean, demanding time, lots of events, the great level of questions and inquiry, my meeting and exceeding my expectations, absolutely.
And Donna, kind of same question back to you. Being a candidate in a local election is a lot of fun one day and scary the next.
Scary every day. Yeah.
Best and worst, if I'm right?
Oh, the best. Well, I think it's just certainly reaffirmed what it was that I've known all along about what a terrific school system we have and what a terrific community we have. I mean, it's been great to go out and meet people and hear their opinions and perspectives on things. And I found people to be very kind and welcoming and respectful. So, I think it's, as I said, reaffirmed, my belief in that this is a great town and this is a great process, and I'm very, very honored to be a part of it.
Terrific. And I'd like a 1-minute closing statement. At the end, I always like to remind people to ask. There's a camera back there. That's where most of the people are. Ask for the vote. And we'll start with Jamie, please.
Again, thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to come out here. Thank you for actively participating and being proactive in your community and showing your support. I think that is crucial in helping this town be as great as it is and continue moving forward into the future. Just a reminder, I've done a lot of volunteering over that would be allowed during my Army career with at-risk high school, middle schoolers, leadership mentor for high school students. I was a DARE instructor for kindergarten through 5th grade in the 90s in the state of Maryland. So I do have some experience there, and I've always been actively involved in whatever community I'm in. I also let you know that the Army has moved me every 3 to 5 years, so I've had to assimilate quickly and learn how things are done, and then develop working relationships to be effective in that community. And I know that has trained me to be able to do that here for you all. I thank you for allowing me to come here, and I humbly ask for your vote on April 3rd for Jamie Outland Brown for Chelmsford School Committee.
Thank you. And Donna.
I'd like to thank the Republican Town Committee again for sponsoring tonight's debate. I've had the pleasure of living in town for the last 20 years and the honor of volunteering for many wonderful groups, boards, and organizations. I've been an educator for 30 years. Make no mistake, I have skin in the game. I have devoted all of my adult life to the field of education. I have invested time and energy in trying to do my part to serve Chelmsford. I have done this because I love this town and I value civic engagement. But most importantly, I know it's the collective efforts of the residents that make this town a desirable place to live and raise a family. I am not entrenched, I am invested. I want to devote my time, energy to serving on the school committee. My perspective may not be new, but it is experienced. The role of a school committee member involves a serious commitment, depth of knowledge of the school system and town, and a desire to provide the best education for all students. The leadership, teamwork skills I have acquired in the years, and teaching and civic involvement will enable me to refocus the efforts of the school committee on the most important job, educating our students. I respectfully ask for your vote on April 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the school committee portion of our debate, and we'll take a break of about 5 minutes. Ladies, thank you very much.
Again, always. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
1 minute warning. Everybody please find their seats.
Which one is Laura and which one is George? Get you off on a smile.
There we go. Okay, we're back. Second part of our evening tonight is the Board of Selectmen race. We have two of the three candidates here tonight. Emily Antool was unavailable this evening, so we're going with our two, and that worked out very nicely. We can go back and forth and ask lots of questions. Enjoyed that a lot. We have, tonight we have two members of the current board, and we have two seats available for the Board of Selectmen. So you'll be voting for two of the three, and two folks will become Board of Selectmen, just to give you a little guideline there. And again, the vote is on Tuesday, April 3rd. It's very important to get out and vote on our town votes. This is the basic democracy that we all watch on the news at a federal level. This actually affects us directly. So please do get out and vote. I have Laura Merrill running for Board of Selectmen, and I have George Dixon. Laura, would you start with a simple bio of yourself? Describe who you are and why you're running for Selectman. Thank you.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Laura Merrill. I'm a 23-year-old resident, 23-year resident. I wish. I am a 23-year resident of Chelmsford, and I have two children, one who recently graduated and one who's still attending the Chelmsford High School. I have a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Massachusetts, and I work for a company called Doble Engineering, as a software developer of business solutions. In addition to being a current member of the Board of Selectmen, I am currently serving on my third term as a Precinct 2 town meeting rep, and my voting history in both capacities shows my support for more conservative town spending and property tax relief. As your selectman, I will continue to bring more fiscal accountability to the Board of Selectmen while focusing on maintaining the current level of town safety and services. I feel the responsibility placed on me by the residents to spend their money wisely. I apply the same values when making decisions about spending taxpayers' money as I do with my own budget. As your selectman, I will continue to support efforts to reduce the town's spending and consolidate resources so Chelmsford continues to be an affordable and desirable community for all residents.
Thank you. George?
Nice job.
Thank you.
All right. I am proud to say that I am from a family who's lived in this town for 125 years. I haven't lived all those 125 years, but 71 of them. But I'm third generation of my family, and I'm married to my wife Terry for 50 years. We have two great kids who both graduated through the Chelmsford school systems, and went on to graduate from college. I graduated from UMass Lowell, which when I went there was called Lowell Tech, I think. So that shows you how old I am. But I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 9 years. I've proudly served. I've met a lot of great people, made a lot of friends, made a few enemies along the way. I was chairman 3 times. I've been liaison to many of the committees in town. I've been a town meeting rep for 15 years, and I've been involved with a few some of my civil duties in town. I include working on the board of directors of the Paul Center, working in the pastoral council at St. John's Church. I've been a coach for 20 years. I coached in the Little League. I was a director for 10 years at the Lowell Boys and Girls Club, and been on the board of directors and the Hall of Fame committee of the Chelmsford High School Alumni Association. And I'm looking forward, or I'm hoping to get one of the two seats and having one more term on the Board of Selectmen. And I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy trying new things. And I think I fought for the people, and I'm still trying to fight for the people in a few categories, and which maybe we'll just start to speak about this evening. And I'm looking forward to it, and I hope I get that challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've gotten quite a few questions from the audience, in addition to the questions we had, and most of them are financial in nature. The selectmen have responsibility to take the budget, make a recommendation to town meeting. And let me start with, during your tenure as selectman, how much money, and George, we'll start with you. How much money have you returned to the taxpayers? And if elected, what will you do to bring tax relief to our residents?
Well, I know that somebody in the room wanted to put an article in to return the money, surplus funds at the end of the year, and I agree with that. As far as what we've done in the past, I can remember it being done once, and there's a gentleman in the room, Jimmy Lane, who with myself worked hard to one time return $900,000 to the taxpayers. It only amounted to about $20 or $30 a household, but the fact is that we did turn it back. I think it was voted, we went against the Finance Committee, and I think we were the minority on the Board of Selectmen at that time. But that's the only time I can remember, but that's what I would like to see done, unless there's an emergency type of need at the end of the year. Like one time we had to buy the fire truck or whatever it was. And,
Okay.
but normally I would just say give it back to the taxpayers.
Terrific. Thank you. Laura?
My recollection, in addition to that $900,000 that we did vote to return, there has been a question that has come up at least early in the development of the articles, and every year since then. I think it's because several selectmen, myself including, encouraged the town manager to continue to do this. He has tried to make this a regular item when there is money left over. I would like to see, since we have put so much into our stabilization fund, it's pretty stable right now, and at the recommended 7.5% of our annual budget. So I would like to see more money returned to our taxpayers, either in the form of sending the free cash back to them and applying it to the next year, or possibly looking at coming up with an underride and permanently applying it to the tax levy.
And you used the term underride, and I do have a question here. We have a high school coming along that's talking about an override. In other words, overriding the Prop 2.5 limits to our taxpayers. So Laura, would you support an underride proposition?
An underride or an override?
Underride,
I would
to
definitely.
reduce taxes.
Definitely support an underride proposition. I think that the only, without putting something like that in place, it would be very difficult to encourage the town to really look at their current spending and to come up with new ways to sustain services. I think that by putting an underride in, it would put the pressure on, and we would really have to relook at the budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And George, would you support an underride proposition?
Will you
in our
define
town?
what you mean by underride, please?
Good good response. An underride a levy limit underride decreases the amount of property taxes that, revenue that a community may raise in a year specified in the underride question and in future years. It decreases the community's levy limit and becomes part of the tax base, calculating future years' levies. The result is a permanent decrease in taxing authority. So it's a permanent cut. Right now, the town manager would recommend full 2.5% levy typically in a year, and the voters could have an underride and say, hey, we want to take out a certain number of dollars or percent. That's what an underride is. Would you
Well,
be able to support an
I
underride?
think anytime you could save the taxpayers money, you'd want to be in favor of that. Although I think it's a lot easier to say that than it is to do it. I mean, I think right now, if in the last 6 or 7 years, we haven't got any additional money from the state. Our expenses go up tremendously with, automatically our healthcare, our OPEB money. We have our unions, in which we may be facing, some bad decisions with the unions in the next few months, because we've been in litigation with them, and if we come back, we may have to come back for more money. I think it's great to say we could cut taxes, we can do this, we can do that. The only other thing you have to do if you want to cut taxes, you have to cut services. And right now, we're on demand in the fire department. We're probably 4 or 5 firemen short of having a full complement. As far as the police department is concerned, we may be a couple short. But, I think it's great to say I would sit in here and cut taxes or do an underride, so to speak, but I think it would be very difficult to do in this economy.
Okay, I'm a little unclear on the answer. You would support an underride?
If it's at all possible, but I think it'd be very difficult with,
Okay.
making the numbers work. It would be a lot tougher than saying,
Okay.
we'll do
And
it.
Laura, you would support an underride?
Obviously, I would, the numbers would need to make sense, but yes, I would definitely work hard to try to see that the numbers made sense.
Okay. And Laura, I have a question similar to the school committee question. What do you believe is the current vision for the town? And I'm gonna couch that a little bit. We have a new district that we're building, and there's some housing going in all over town. With that in mind, what is your vision, current vision of the town?
Well, I grew up in Shrewsbury, and I came to Chelmsford because it reminded me of the town that I had grown up in prior to what happened to Shrewsbury, which, it's a giant strip mall from one end to the other, split up with a lot of apartments, and it really, the town kind of outgrew. It became too large personally for me. I would like to see Chelmsford try to focus its vision, sticking to the master plan ideals that were set forth a few years ago, trying to preserve open spaces, make sure that the projects going in, that it makes sense for the resources that we have. That would be what I would say.
And George, what do you believe the current vision for the town is, keeping in mind again that we've done quite a lot of housing development, and we have this 129 district?
Well, I would say that right now we're shooting a lot of our interest into the 129 overlay district. I think we've opened the gates for the Economic Development Committee and our new Economic Development Director and people to come in here and we've helped the zoning as far as commercial. I just hope that, we can bring that in. We have a tremendous potential down here, which would really bring the taxes down if we increased the tax base of the commercial properties down there. As far as 40Bs, I think you're referring to housing projects. I think we've reached our 10%. So as far as predatory lending and things, building and things like that, with 40B developers, I think now Chelmsford controls whether or not they'll come in town or not. We have to really like the project, or else we don't have to accept it. Before we reached that 10%, anything that we turned down, it was appealed. And I think you saw it on one deal down by you. I don't know if it was appealed or it was going to be appealed, but anything that gets appealed to the community housing development in the state usually comes back against the town until they reach their 10%. We've reached our 10%. So as far as the residential housing and big developments, I think we're okay. So I think right now we have to focus on what we went and we put the overlay district in, and we have to capitalize on that. And we can go up to 6 stories by right in most places down here, and some 9 stories. And I think we can go out, and the land is as cheap as anywhere. We have the best, by far the best tax rate around as far as commercial tax rate. And because in my opinion, the residents are paying a bigger portion of it. And I think, but that's another story. But I just think that's where we have to focus and make it happen. And I think the town would be in great shape.
Thank you. A couple of good points there regarding the overlay district and housing 40B and that sort of thing. The current overlay district has put in a commercial building that's 19 units per acre. And the 40B, that same property was a 40B property where the state comes in and says how many units per acre you have. And their units per acre in the plan, in the master plan that I heard Laura speak of, and the housing production plan was using 19 acres or about 5 or 6 units per acre. Yet the planning board has developed a commercial, not a 40B, actually a commercial property there at 19 units per acre, a lot denser. And in one of their meetings, they talked about 30 or more units per acre. I'd argue that's more like a city. Would you envision 30 units per acre along Turnpike as a reasonable Chelmsford-looking housing view of the next, say, in the next 10 years?
Probably not, but it would all depend on the zoning, and the zoning was all passed on some of these developments, and I'm not sure if you're talking about a specific one or a hypothetical one. But
Specific one,
specific
already
one.
approved.
But was that part of a COID, part of the overlay, which was passed at town meeting? So if it's within the zoning, I don't know how the committees can turn it down at that time.
Okay. And Laura? 30 units per acre along 129 versus in terms of our vision of the town, is that a vision that you might have?
I think that it's hard to envision 30 units per acre as you're looking at across the street at single-family homes. I think that the way that was set up several years ago, a couple of years ago, was that it was supposed to be a buffer zone. So I would think that not only would 38 that be quite a burden on the nearest residents, but I also think that the amount of residents coming into the town are going to put a lot of burden on the taxes that many more residents in terms of the schools, the emergency services, water, sewerage, and that's really not what I was looking for in terms of where I wanted to live.
Okay.
Chelmsford does not have to become a city to pay for its bills.
Okay, thank you. And Laura, for you, what are your thoughts on the ballot? There's ballot questions. We have several. On the specific one, the ballot question regarding the split tax rate. Maybe you can describe what that is as well.
So basically, the split tax rate question whether or not Chelmsford should have a split tax rate. That's a question that comes to the Board of Selectmen every year, whether the residents and the businesses should pay the same rate of taxes. And with this question, typically this question is handled through the Board of Selectmen receive a series of reports from the town. We have an open meeting, and we listen to people come from the resident and community and business communities, and we make a decision. With putting this out to a vote for the public, this is just one more piece of information that the Board of Selectmen can use when they're making this decision next December.
Thank you. In terms of our questions on the ballot, which one is most important, or maybe you can describe one beyond that one? Current ballot questions?
Current ballot of all, do you want to list out the three? There's the three.
If you like. There's several ballot questions. Which one maybe do you feel most important for the future of Chelmsford?
I personally would have liked to see a question. Are you talking about the?
Well, we have some right now.
Yeah, are you talking about town meeting ballot, or are you talking about
The April 3rd, the
Okay.
residents are going to have to answer some questions on the ballot itself.
Yes.
Which one of those maybe is most important? Are you familiar with those questions? I had to look myself.
I know, I was familiar with them until you asked me the question, and now they all seem very, so it might help if you were to tell me exactly what three
Well, one of
were.
them was tax rate.
I remember
One of
that.
them was a 10% relief for a certain level of business.
As part of,
Right, they're
That-
basically
that's kind of a
asking.
that's
That's right, they're
combined.
asking the population out there, the
Right.
residents, what their opinion is.
I kind of consider that part of the same question. It is a two-part question, the tax classification, where in addition to finding out what people feel, whether the residents should pay a lower rate than the businesses, whether there should be a break on which businesses, whether smaller businesses would apply with that, to that same standard. And I think that if we were ever to change the tax rate, I think it would be important that there be a break for smaller businesses, say under $1 million or with so many employees. I think 10 or 12 is recommended.
And George, I missed the asking you the same question about tax classification. What is your opinion on tax classification?
Well, I'm in favor of tax, I'm in favor of a split rate. I think it's about time we have it. You know, there's been a lot of noise, a lot of innuendos, nobody sat down and asked, so we put a non-binding, these are non-binding questions you talked about, right? So we just want people to understand what the process is. And I really feel as though we're one of the only towns around here, between Worcester, Boston, and say Newburyport, this area, probably 90% of the towns have split rates. Our records rate is $1.75 for the business against $1 for the residents. Lowell is $1.75, and they tried to go to 187. So when the people use the argument about that we lost business because Kronos moved out and because of taxes, I mean, they couldn't have been paying less taxes than they were paying in Chelmsford. However, one of the deals, of that situation where they were going to go there, one of the part of the agreement was that the people that own the towers had to buy Kronos's property, and they did. So now Kronos went down and became their tenant. Those people now have come back and since sold Kronos's building for $15 million and brought a company in here. So obviously it can be done. There's two buildings across the street that are empty that are owned by a major company in Boston. And that company has been approached, would they sell the building? No, they want to lease it. So that tells me that they believe in this town, that they believe that this town is going to make it, and it's a great town to do business in. It's a great location, number one. You can't beat the location. We have a good workforce. We have a good school system. We have a solid town. And so for them not to want to sell it and get out and go somewhere else tells me this is Boston Properties. They have 2 buildings that are empty, okay? So if you take the top 25 taxpayers in Chelmsford, I think there's only 2 of them that are Chelmsford residents or companies from Chelmsford. They're all from out of town.
Okay.
So I'm definitely in favor of a split tax rate.
Okay, I was trying to get to that. You're definitely in favor of
Yes, I am.
a split tax rate, so
Correct.
residents would pay a lower rate per $1,000
correct.
valuation.
That's right.
Than a business in town.
That's right,
This
but-
is a change in what the town's done for 20 years.
That's right.
And Laura, you would also be in favor of a split tax rate where the business would pay more?
Currently, I am not in favor of it. I have, I think that if we're going to ask the businesses to take on some of our spending, some of our additional taxation, I think that we need to try harder to curb our spending. I think that from what I've seen, there's a big push to try to use up to the 2.5% with whatever we can. Last year, we actually had some extra money in our levy with the catch-up year, with everyone being reevaluated for their tax assessment. And instead of, the answer was to try to squeeze in 2 building projects in the same year. Now here we are, everyone's saying, oh my goodness, we have $7,000 average tax bill, but it's a direct result of the spending from that was approved the previous year.
Okay, thank you. And George, I'd ask Laura about the ballot questions. Which one do you feel is the most important to the future of Chelmsford?
I think that is the most important one, split tax rate. I think it's about time, and it should be done. I'm not saying everybody should jump into it. I'm not saying it should be $1.50, $1.75, $2. I'm saying the committee should be formed, and people should understand how the tax rate is formed, when it's voted on, by whom. It's only voted on by the Board of Selectmen. It's like the second Monday of every year, of December, every year. And it's voted on whether we're going to go with a split rate or, and obviously there's one group that's fighting it, and other people are excited about it. So, it's politics.
Okay.
But I think it's about time we do it. And so.
Okay, thank you. This question is related again to taxes. George, what can the Board of Selectmen do to reduce or control the growth rate of our taxes?
Well, I tell you, it's pretty difficult, but, I'm not saying it can't be done, but as I stated earlier, I think most important thing is our schools, public safety, and, and then what revenue we get from taxes from the state. And the state has not increased our taxes 10 cents. Chapter 70 money, we get like another extra $10 per pupil or something, average for the last 6-7 years. We get about we get a minimal other tax money from the state. So we get nothing from the state of Massachusetts. We don't get any help from the state of Massachusetts. Our pension funds, our OPEB liability we owe like $60 million on it now. I think it's down from 80 to 60. And that'll go away in about 20 years. Our auditors came in, and we give, people pay their going rate now, and plus we put an additional $1 million against the balance. And what people don't understand, what OPEB is, it's other post-employment benefits, and it occurred because of the actuarial tables of years ago. And people have more than outlived the money that they put aside for pensions. As a result, we've paid for so many more people for much longer than they contributed for a much longer period of time. Instead of somebody was supposed to live for 10 years, they're now living for 20, 25.
Thank you. Laura, what can the Board of Selectmen do to reduce or control the growth of property taxes?
The biggest role I think that the Board of Selectmen has is the influence that they can try to exert over the town manager. Undoubtedly, he is the executive running the town, and he is in charge of all of the day-to-day answers. But what the Board of Selectmen meets with him every 2 weeks, and it is really our job to kind of guide him in what direction that the town should be heading in terms of what types of spending, how big a spending, whether we should have more than one project or two projects in a given year. So we don't have direct we have an influence, but that's really where the role of the selectmen lies.
Thank you. And press questions. Tom Cristiano.
Thank you. Get the video going. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question for both candidates. This Saturday, March 24th, at 1:30 p.m. on the Chelmsford Common, there's going to be a gathering called Walk for Our Lives. Hopefully you're both aware of this. It's a gathering on the Common to support the students who are fighting for stronger gun laws throughout the country. Will you be there Saturday to support these students? And if not, why not? Thank you. Laura, can we start with you?
Certainly. I certainly support the students that are standing up and learning about what it is to participate in government, and I think that this is really important. I would love to be at this event, but there are just so many events that I personally am not going to be able to be there. I don't know whether or not my own student is planning on participating. She hasn't mentioned it to me. But I think that it is a very important event, and again, I wish I could be at every one of them, but I can't.
So you support the students, basically?
I support
Movement, basically.
I support the students having a movement. If the part about democracy is that you can be on either side of an issue. I can't say that is the right side to be on, because everyone has their own opinion. So I support them participating in government and getting involved and learning about the issues and voicing their opinion. I think that is really what's important here to support. Thank you.
And George, same question.
Yeah, I believe that the students, it's a great lesson for the students to exercise their First Amendment rights. I'm not sure what the answer is. What the answers are, I think it's a lot deeper than just having a march. I mean, the fact that they're marching and and as long as it's done in an orderly fashion, I believe in, the right to assemble and voice their opinion and what have you. As long as they do it in the right. I don't know who's running this, who is organizing this one.
Well, there are different people from Westford and Chelmsford, different volunteers, basically, that have gathered. There's a Facebook group about it and posted on the Chelmsford News periodically. So, but the question was, too, are you going to be there, George?
No, I have a previous engagement.
Oh, previous engagement.
Yes, I
No,
do.
thank you. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Okay. And Chelmsford Independent? Mark, no question? Okay. Laura, the grinder pump issue. A homeowner claims he was falsely charged with abuse or misuse of his grinder pump due to what he felt was an unfair appeal process. What can you do as selectmen to establish a fair appeal process to prevent this from happening to someone else? More than 500 grinder pump households want to know.
And I'm glad you brought that question up, Brian. I have the same question, and when that gentleman came in front of the board at our last meeting, I was very concerned that what the process was and why it appeared from the homeowner's perspective that it was not a fair process. So I was planning on speaking with the chairperson, the chairman of the board, and asking her what is the procedure to go about reviewing that as a board, and what could we do? Because I honestly did not understand what the board's rights were at that moment when the question first came in front of us.
Thank you. George, grinder pump.
Okay?
And the homeowners feeling that they didn't have a fair appeal process.
Right. Okay, I was absent due to some health issues for 2 meetings, but this evening I was on the grinder pump committee, I was the liaison to the Board of Selectmen. So I'm fairly familiar with, and Mr. Foley, who wrote that letter, is an extremely bright guy, and he worked extremely hard, and I think there were a lot of people who have grinder pumps that obviously would never have had them if they had a second choice. And I think some of them have been treated unfairly, and I think a lot of it was rectified during that period where we had that. As a matter of fact, they won at the town meeting, and there was a new grinder pump ordinance put in. And as I was talking to Mr. Barton, who was one of the key members of that committee, there's some technical questions that only an electrical engineer or something could answer that regarding their generator. My opinion is that the town, it's an enterprise fund with the sewer department. We grab a little bit extra money with the, we charge, your sewer bill is what your water bill is, and a lot of that water doesn't go through the sewer, so there's a big surplus every year. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the town eating a little bit more than they should of that bill, if it wasn't just, an error of the user. But I've yet to see, somebody professionally tell me what actually happened. I mean, there's two sides, and the town made a decision, I guess, and I'm not really in favor of that decision at the moment.
I guess part of the question is around the process itself, and is there a way that the selectmen can make a more fair process if it isn't fair?
Well, I
you
don't
have
think we
that?
could change the bylaw, but I think that on each individual, I think we could have, I wasn't there, so I shouldn't say should have. And I don't want to criticize anybody that I serve with, and I'm not saying I'm right, but it's only my opinion that we probably could have been a little bit more fair to the people.
Okay, thank you. Do you have questions for each other? I know this is kind of, you're both sitting selectmen. And George, do you have a question for?
Well, the other night, I started a question with Laura. We talked about the train, so I think maybe she'd like to continue the potential of a train in North Chelmsford, or what she maybe has done on some background, because there is a committee in New Hampshire that's studying to do this. So, but
Can you expand on that? We're talking about the train service.
commuter rail. I'm sorry.
Commuter rail station for North
Is that what
Chelmsford.
it was? Yes. When I was a kid, you could get on a commuter rail in North Chelmsford, believe it or not.
And Laura?
Really? So I guess your question is whether or not I'll support a
Well, I
commuter
guess
or
so,
is
yeah. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I didn't know if you had done some other work. I mean, it's.
No, I just, it had come up recently, and I thought that there was a very, I've been talking about it for years, how great it would be if we could bring a commuter rail up to North Chelmsford. It seems like that area behind Vinyl Square is perfectly set up for it, and I really think that it would bring a lot of business potential to the Vinyl Square area, which pretty much I don't think anyone's going to stop there for businesses unless you give them a reason to stop. I mean, we've got a lovely center, but the parking limitations are really going to inhibit the growth of that area until we can bring in something like a commuter rail.
Okay. Do you have a question for George, Laura?
George, you did a lot of work on the UMass West Campus Committee. If that were to come up in front of the town for a potential purchase, what would you see the best use of that property, and who do you think should manage the purchase and the maintenance ongoing? What's your vision? What vision would you have for that property?
Okay. Well, it certainly wouldn't ask the taxpayers to foot the bill, number one. I would, but I do think it could be a very, and by the way, we control that now because of the 10%, so that it's only zoned, the only people that can, the town can change the zoning, but nobody else can come in and change the zoning. So right now, it's only zoned for 22 single-family houses, okay? The state is putting it out for bid. My hope is, and I think to a lot of the neighbors and people that were on the committee with me, is that Mr. Hedison and his, through his nonprofit company called Choice, would somehow raise the money. He's very, very good at raising money for building and things like that, and probably put maybe, there are a lot of 55 and over developments in that area, and some of those people are looking to downsize. Maybe they put some 55 units in there with some, an additional, maybe an assisted living type of arm with it, so that people could move right into another situation if they couldn't live on their own again or whatever, and let him run it. And I think that would create a lot of tax revenue for the town, maybe $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 additional, which is what we need to reduce taxes, and keep it in town, and it would be a great asset for the town. So, and it wouldn't affect public, it wouldn't affect the schools, and it wouldn't maybe have a slight effect on the public safety with the fire and police, maybe we have medical calls, but other than that, I would think it would be
And
best
Laura,
use.
Laura, best use for that West Campus property? I think it's 35 acres or something in that range.
I could, well, I was not involved with the committee, but I've seen the original plans for that, and I thought that there was one that had sort of a mixed use where they actually tried to, there was also a medical facility that had a co-op program with the nursing from the UMass campus, and that if we could, in addition to what George was talking about, also provide some services right in that area so that, we're getting all these senior residents in one location. If they didn't have to drive so far to, see a doctor, that'd be great.
Great, terrific. And I've given up on my own topic of trying to get the outhouses on 495 that are in Chelmsford removed, but I have a personal favor and wondered if both of you might comment. There is a Blue Bunny ice cream machine that's rotted and rusting in that same location. Could you get the Blue Bunny rusted ice cream machine or the carcass of that taken out rather than all the outhouses? Because I've given up trying to get that done. Laura?
That's a new one in front of me this week, but I can certainly look into that, maybe make a few phone calls and do my best.
Thank you. George?
Hopefully, I'm meeting with one of the representative that's in charge of that. So, not because of that either.
Okay.
I mean, that's, thank you for bringing
I'm
it.
just looking for the ice cream
I
machine.
promise I'll ask him the question, and there's somebody in the room that'll be a witness that I will ask the question. I won't mention who the person is in the room because I don't want to I want them to enjoy the evening, but.
All right, I had to ask.
It's fine, no problem.
Thank you. I have a minute of time, and I like to, there's cameras back there. With the closing statement, ask for the voters to vote for you. Laura?
Thank you, Brian, and the Republican Town Committee for inviting us here to speak this evening. It's been a great evening. Thank you for the Chelmsford Telemedia for broadcasting, as well as other members of the press. I moved to Chelmsford 23 years ago because it was a desirable yet affordable community where I could purchase a home and raise a family. Chelmsford was a town where I could live within my means while enjoying the various amenities the town had to offer. But in order for this American dream to continue to be a reality for me and residents like me, Chelmsford officials must do a better job in controlling the amount of new debt we are adding to our budget every year and learn to live within our means. As your selectman, I will continue to reduce efforts to reduce the town's spending and consolidate resources so Chelmsford continues to be an affordable community to its residents. My goals have not changed in 3 years. I will continue to work towards fiscal accountability while maintaining level services, slowing development growth while protecting and preserving town resources, and improving communication and coordination between the town boards. I approach the job of selectman as a problem solver with an open mind and open ears, ready to listen to the ideas and concerns of the residents and business owners of this community. I work hard to understand all aspects of these issues and vote with integrity, use my ingenuity to find solutions for this town that align with my Yankee spending ideals. I do my homework, and I strive to earn your vote of confidence every day. I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes for selectmen on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. George?
Thank you. Thank you for your job tonight, Brian. Thank you for the Republican Town Committee for inviting me. The press, Big Tom, and the Chelmsford Independent, Chelmsford Telemedia. Mine's very, very simple. I mean, if you look around, first of all, I've been on the board for 9 years, and each year it gets tougher to get people to get involved. It's the same people all the time are getting involved. The biggest thing I'd like to accomplish is, if you look around today, I'd hate to guess what the average age is in this room. And I'm not being, I know it sounds like a wise thing to say, but it's probably about 15 or 20 years higher than I'd like to see it, truthfully. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't want the older people involved, because they've been around, they can help. But I want to get the young people, the young stakeholders involved in this town. People who have children in the school system, young homeowners, people who are going to be here for a while. I've been here, I've been here 71 years. I guess, I'm not going to be here another 71. I mean, we have to have people come in and take over. They have to work with us. I love working with people. I'd be happy to work with anybody, help anybody get on a committee. I've helped a lot of people get on various committees, as well as the other selectmen have done the same thing. And we're always trying to get younger people involved. And it would be a great combination for some experienced people to work with, to be able to work with younger people and bring them along. And because we have some very, very smart people in this town, and very young and energetic people, and a lot of people who have lived in this town, so they have a lot of pride. Chelmsford has a lot of pride. I have a lot of pride in this town. I don't know anybody that grew up in this town that doesn't have a lot of pride in this town. So my biggest goal would be to get the younger people involved in this town. And I would humbly, on April, I think it's the AAA, all right? April 3rd, I guess, there's an election coming up, and so there's two spots open. I humbly ask for one of your votes. And thank you very much for coming and listening and getting involved. I appreciate the people that are here and do get involved, and I really do appreciate that. So whatever, my comments were not disrespectful and are meant to be in any manner. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to echo that as well. I'd like to remind you, April 3rd, to please come out and vote and do something else for me. Put your selectmen's phone numbers on your cell phones, and please call them when issues come up. Please visit them in the selectmen's meeting and stand up at the public parts of our meetings and get involved. It's very, very important. Thank you very much for coming this evening, and thank the candidates. Thank you for running. We have a couple in the room here, and we have two up front. Thank you very much for your time and energy.